got the ARP AXXE. These were first released in 1975, and it's essentially a cut-down, single oscillator, budget-friendly version of the Odyssey. Here they are together. I've got both here at the moment, and you can clearly see the similarities, especially as these two have got the same paint job. The original version of the AXXE had the black and gold colouring of the Mark II Odyssey. The only real differences here are the rotary controller for pitch bend, although you will find some that have got a pressure pad rather than the pop. These pressure pad controls were added in this version that came out in 1978. So we've got pitch bend, and we've got the modulation. But I'm not a particular fan of them. They're pretty hard to control, and I guess there's a reason why you don't see them on synths anymore. And this version also has ARP's precarious overhanging keys. These are pretty easy to catch on things if you're moving it around a lot because they stick out from the actual body of the synth. So you will find these where like a new body's been fitted and you've got like a wooden panel across the back there so that it protects them. But unlike the different versions of the Odyssey, the white, the black and gold and the black and orange, which all had different filters in them, these have all got the same filter. The black and gold and the black and orange of this all have the 4075 24 dB low pass ARP filter. And that's not quite as bright as the Moog. It's renowned for that, and that's because there was a design error on the filter itself, which limited its range up to about 14 kHz. But by just replacing these four 4.7K resistors with 2.2K resistors sorts this out. And this one has had that mod. It died a couple of weeks ago when I got it out to do a comparison with the G4 software. So I took it to a guy who brings my synths back to life. That's Gareth in Sound Service in Leeds, if you're interested. And while he was in there replacing stuff, he replaced those resistors as well. And you can see here, we're going way over the 14K now. And this one cost me £600. I bought it a year, maybe 2 years ago, just to do a video on it. But since I've had to have it fixed, it's cost me approximately another £300 if I include driving to Leeds to drop it off and then driving to Leeds to pick it up again. And £900 in the region of what you pay for one in decent condition. And that's not cheap considering this really is a super simple little synth. It's got a single oscillator, it's got a single LFO, it's got a single filter, and it's got a single envelope generator. And that's it, no complex modulation, not even a sub. But although it was a budget synth, it was never a budget build. It's based on the circuitry of the Odyssey, which is based on the circuitry of the 2600, but it's just been stripped back to its bare essentials, and that's really important because it doesn't sound cheap. It sounds the same as those really expensive synths. It can just do less stuff. And on the back, we've got plenty of CV connections that can help expand its capabilities. It's got CV, gate and trigger ins and outs, so it'll play well with your eurorack. This one's obviously at some point also had some sort of MIDI connection. And the foot pedal input can be used for modulating the filter, so you can bring in oscillators from your eurorack to do much more complex things with it. Let's start off as usual then by taking a listen to the oscillators. In this case, it's just the oscillator, but we have a sawtooth and we have a pulse, which we can blend. And as we add the second one, we get more volume. And you'll notice we've got no octave switch on there, but we do have this transpose for the keyboard. And it transposes up and down 2 octaves, which is a little bit awkward actually, rather than being 1 octave, because sometimes you're playing a a bass line on these 2 octaves, and you just want an extra note or two, and you wish you could shift the whole thing down just 1 octave. And it almost tracks perfectly. And you'll notice as well, those sawtooth waves are curved lower down and they get straighter as you go up. Loads of synths do that, I don't know why. Starts off really curved. And then ends up really straight. I did look at that with the GeForce AXXE software, and that's straight all the way through, but it doesn't make any impact on the sound. It's still got the same harmonics that you'd expect from a straight sawtooth. It's got all the even and all the odd. Sawtooth's a sawtooth, but it does sound nice and punchy, that, doesn't it? It has got some sort of weight to it, but the pulse on this is great. It's not a perfect square, but this one could just need a little bit of tweaking in the calibration. And it doesn't go through 0, but the PWM's lovely. Add PWM by adding the LFO here. Really thick sounding, that, isn't it? Go up a couple of octaves. Still got some weight to it, but then when you add the sawtooth into there as well, it just adds a little bit of fatness and increases the volume. But what I really like doing with it is using the ADSR to modulate the pulse width. And you get, let's just bring this down. You get a change in the harmonics that seems to give a really nice transient punch at the start of the tone. And then combining that with a sawtooth, really jumps out at you. Almost like a bit of a sync effect. To me, that epitomizes the sound of it. It sounds dirty and nasty and raw, and then add in a little bit of PWM as well. To me, that sounds much bigger and fatter than you'd expect to get from something so simple. Just adding a bit of noise there. Can't forget the noise, pink noise. And suppose that brings us to the filter. And as I said earlier, it's a 24 dB low pass 4075 ARP filter, and this one's been tweaked. These faders are actually a little bit sticky. It's quite difficult to get something precise on these. I think that's common in them all. As we add resonance, we lose volume. But it sounds really nice, doesn't it? And it's not suffering from what people didn't like about the original 4075, and that's the fact it wasn't as bright as the Moog. And of course, the 4075 replaced the Moog in the Odyssey because of the potential legal implications and an almost lawsuit from Moog, which never happened. So watch your ears here, because it's going to whack it up. Getting stuck. Also talking through it so don't get filter sweep copyright claims. Nice and bright. Now this is going to go really high, so I'll turn it down a bit. We've got filter tracking. If we look here, keyboard CV, sample and hold or pedal. Let's add tracking. Let's turn the VCO off for now. 1 volt per octave when it's on full. So we can do organ style tones. But my little test for electronic growly tracking is a little bit of this. So it passes my Voodoo Ray test. I know that was an SH101, but the way that sort of breaks up on each of the notes the same way is really nice. And we haven't got loads of modulation options on this, but we do have the LFO and ADSR. So let's bring the LFO in. That goes up to 20 Hertz. And then of course got the ADSR. And of course we've only got a single ADSR envelope here, so we're losing volume as we decrease the filter. So I like to use the LFO to do different things with that. So that brings me, I suppose, to the LFO. And this LFO re-triggers, which can be great for trying to use it as almost like an envelope, but a bit annoying when you're trying to do nice long legato leads. I'll show you what I mean. So if we want to do this sort of effect, but keep the volume high, we can't with the ADSR modulating the filter. But if we use the LFO, then drop the rate of the LFO. Let's try it a bit better. So now we're retaining the volume, but we're still getting that filter drop. The other modulation destinations for the LFO are the VCO. We've also got a square output. So that's unipolar, and on the square it's 16 semitones, but it'd be quite nice if it was limited to 12, just to make doing an octave easy. So yeah, it re-triggers with the key hit, which can be annoying when you're trying to do nice long mellow leads. So if I bring in something like this perhaps, let's put an LFO on the filter, drop the speed of that. It always comes back to the peak of that LFO. So if you just wanted that LFO to sort of gently wave through that filter while you're playing a lead sound, it won't work. Just a little characteristic of the AXXE. What else have we got on here? We've got sample and hold. So you can put the sample and hold circuit on there. And that switches so that we know if we're going to use the keyboard CV or the sample and hold. So once the sample and hold circuit's switched in, and we go to the filter, for example, the rate of that's dictated by the LFO. But if we take that out, we're now filter tracking on the keyboard. And if you put a pedal in, that overrides both of them. A little trick this has got up its sleeve is this switch here, and this is for loopable envelopes. And they repeat at the rate of the LFO. And also repeats a bit like a latch. So although it doesn't have an ARP or a sequencer on it, you can definitely get rigid sounding rhythms, I suppose. Although because the LFO does re-trigger, if you get it wrong, it does go out of time. So at least you could keep in time with your drummer if he wasn't bang on the beat. Well, I think I've looked at everything on the front panel now. Should we take a look at some of the connections on the back and maybe add another little synth? Here I've hooked it up to the Moog Mavis and it fits really nicely on the top there. Really nice little combination this. The only problem I have with it is that the Moog doesn't really track very well over a whole octave, so it's really noticeable when you've got it with something else that's pitched because it sort of tends to go out. So get those the same. That's as close as I'll get them. And now they're out. Now they're definitely out. And now they're just wrong. And that's the Mavis, not the Axe. I've got the Mavis in VCA on mode. So although I've got the gate coming in here, I don't really need that. And the audio out from the Mavis is just going direct into the audio in of the Axe. So if I turn up the gain, I'm hearing both of them. If I turn down the VCO on the Axe, that's just the Mavis. But it means you can do more complex things on it. If I bring in the gate for this, for example, as well, and bring this into VCA mode envelope generator. Bring the VCO in there. You got two envelopes playing, so you can do stuff with that as well, maybe. But the two of them really do sound nice together. Nice, isn't it? Let's try some audio mod of the filter on the apps using the oscillator on the Mavis. Well, there you have it, the Axe from ARP. It's a really simple synth, but it sounds really wonderful. And that PWM, I'm putting that ADSR in there, really sounds fabulous, I think. It's got some really dirty character to it, and adding other little bits and bobs to it really does open it up a whole lot. Whether it's worth £900 to you is a different question altogether, because, you know, there's a lot of things that you can get for £900, but there is something about having something that's old, that might be older than you and has had a bit of a life and feels like part of history in a way. It's just a nice thing to have a play with, but you know, you do have to pay out every now and then with these vintage ones when bits break on them. Well, anyway, I hope you enjoyed that, and if you did, please think about subscribing, ring the bell, join me over on Patreon. The channel is funded by YouTube ads and my wonderful patrons. The link for that is in the description. For less than the price of triple venti half sweet non-fat caramel macchiato a month, you get access to samples, patches, tutorials and extra stuff. So ditch the coffee and treat yourself to some sonic refreshment instead. And also take a look at my Starsky Car website. I've got stuff to buy, plus I've got free samples and patches. Maybe just pick up some of the really cheap little sample packs there. It all does really help to support the channel. And I'll see you next time, and thank you very much for staying to the very end.